In Worcester, I've never had to leave the city of Worcester, but I'm working on a multifamily in Leominster right now, and there's really not a lot of multifamilies in Leominster.
So we are starting with Jaclyn today, Jaclyn Nally from Allied Appraisers and Associates. This is Juliana, your real estate expert here. The purpose of our video today is to break down what an appraiser does in the whole big scheme of the home purchase program. So I'm gonna go to Jaclyn. Jaclyn, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
We can't complain. We are all doing very well. Thank you.
Good.
Yes. So I want to start with how long have you been doing this?
I began doing appraisals in 2003, and I have just, with the ups and downs of the market, I have been an appraiser ever since.
Awesome. So you like what you do?
I do. I love it. I really do. I like the flexibility. Right out of college, I was interested in architecture and city planning, and this just kind of fell into what I am doing now, and I really enjoy it.
Awesome. So how does it take to become an appraiser?
Well, it could have changed slightly from when I started doing this, but in 2003, you had to become a trainee, and that requires, I think, about 15 hours of classes, which is, I think, 2 classes, and you become a real estate appraiser trainee, and then you have to work under a supervisory appraiser for 2 years, I think, and then you can go on with continuing ed, more classes, test, and then you can become either a licensed appraiser or certified residential appraiser, which is what I am, or a certified general appraiser, which is what a commercial appraiser would be, a certified general. So I'm a certified residential appraiser, and it's a little different with the requirements between a licensed appraiser and a certified. So it's just more classes. I think it's college degree and all of that. So I graduated with sociology was my major, and so I just had that as my education, and then I proceeded to take the classes and the tests, and I am certified. And then every 3 years I have to take more classes and pass more tests to keep my license.
Okay, so you will say from when you start to try and be an appraiser, how long do you have to project? Like in addition to working under an appraiser, that will be like 3 years or 4 years?
Well, they say, I remember 2,500 hours of appraiser experience. I remember hearing that number too. So you have to document all the appraisals that you assisted in or worked with somebody doing. So there's so many hours you need to keep track of. And then in addition to working under somebody who signs off and reviews all of your work.
Oh, okay. So it's not bad because you really learn from somebody who has been doing it. So
exactly. I mean, you can take your test and get a license, but until you're out in the actual workforce and the experience and the market and all of that, working with people and getting to know homes and their amenities and utilities and all of that, do you really feel comfortable doing what I'm doing?
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things you look for when you go to a property, and depending on the financing, of course, whether it's FHA or conventional, what are some of the things?
Yes. Well, I mean, obviously, as you know, location. I mean, that's a huge part of what I do with the market. And then I look at condition of the property. I look at the size of the property, the room count, bedrooms, bathrooms, the amenities, finished basement, air conditioning, a deck, a porch, a pool, all of those things that you have to look at, take into consideration. But a big thing is, I think, quality of construction and the condition of the home.
Okay.
You know, does work need to be done? Has the kitchen been updated? Are there granite countertops? Is the flooring high quality as opposed to, you know, low quality laminate flooring? So a lot of those, we really look at everything, but first and foremost is probably quality and condition.
Okay. So
and then, you know, the year, the age of the building too.
Age of the building. And so lately, with all that's going on, there are a lot of sellers that are refusing FHA loan and they're going for conventional because they are worried about it appraising if it has.
Oh, right.
What are some of the things that we should be concerned about when it comes to appraising an FHA property?
An FHA, I am licensed to perform FHA appraisals, and I look for, well, I have to get up into the attic and we look, it's just more of a detailed inspection on my end. I mean, I'm not an inspector, but for me, it's more of a detailed, they require more photos, getting up to the attic. I think they just want to look at the roof, and we have to make sure the utilities are on and no peeling paint, or, you know, so they're very strict, more strict, or they look for more in the house. So it's really just a more detailed, you know, I mean, you want to make sure your house is updated and well maintained.
Do they care about safety?
Yes.
Oh,
yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like if there's no stairs out of a sliding door or, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, somebody told me one time that they did an FHA appraisal on the property and the carpet was so dirty, they asked them to replace it.
Yeah. I mean, probably. I think what I've learned, each bank is different and each person reviewing the report might catch something and another wouldn't. So because what I do, and that's why they require interior photos, and we are required to be very descriptive on our condition comments. Someone at a bank might catch something and want something repaired, and someone might let it go. And I'm not saying major things, I'm saying maybe minor things.
So what if you can find comps for a certain property and it doesn't appraise? Do you have some special hoops to jump through if a house doesn't appraise? Which one is easier, whether it appraises or it doesn't appraise? Yeah,
well, I've never really had an assignment which doesn't appraise. I always come out with some sort of a value.
We need to have you on all our property.
But I cover Worcester County, and even though I see you mostly in Worcester properties, Worcester, there's more of a population. There are more homes to choose from. Okay. But for example, today I was in North Brookfield, which they have, I don't know, 8 homes that sell within a year, you know, so it's very different. And a lot of times I do have to expand my search outside of the town. Depending on where I am, sometimes I'll do, like in Worcester, I don't have to go beyond a mile radius typically in Worcester. And then with Worcester, there's areas, you know, a house on Grafton Street as opposed to something off of Salisbury Street. You know, like I have to be careful with my location in Worcester, obviously. So I'll sometimes, you know, expand my search 10-mile radius, depending on where I am. But I adjust. And what I do is I bracket the site size, I bracket the gross living area, the room count. So I'm not adjusting down or up all the way across the board. So when you bracket and you cover all bases, there's less kickback from a client, you know? So I like to bracket the year built also. Like I won't do all new construction for a house that's 10 years old. I can't, you know, because then I'm constantly adjusting. So, it's challenging, but because I work in towns like North Brookfield or Royalston or, you know, Barry, Oakham, I do cover those towns also. I have to be a little more creative with my search.
That's really good to hear, because from when we are trying to comp a house to put it on the market, I'm looking at a mile in the city, and then in the towns, I'm looking at 5 miles. I'm trying to stay within that. But you're saying that in the town, you can go 10 miles. Do they allow that? And in the city, how far can you go?
Again, in Worcester, I've never had to leave the city of Worcester, but I'm working on a multifamily in Leominster right now. And there's really not a lot of multifamilies in Leominster. But we've got Fitchburg if I have to go to Worcester. But Worcester's tough because Worcester has a lot of colleges. And obviously a multifamily in close walking distance to a college is going to be a little more valuable than something in Leominster where there's no colleges. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I have to think about location. The city, I've never had to travel outside of the city, but I sometimes, I mean, there's been unique properties where I've had to travel 20, 25 mile radius. You know, just if it's a property with 60 acres or, you know, something just very unique. And that's when I bring in the 4th, the 5th, the 6th comparable sale or a listing, which is tough now with this market because everything's selling over listing. So there are ways to get creative. But again, with so many people looking at my report, whether it's at the bank, whether it's a reviewer or anybody, you have to be really careful with what you choose because they dig through these appraisals like a fine-tooth comb with a fine-tooth comb. So, I mean, it's important to sometimes get creative, but you have to be careful.
Yeah, so if you have to go outside the boundaries, then you have to give detailed reasons and explanation.
Exactly. Why I had to do this, and within so many miles, there was only this many sales. And, you know, so yes, it's all about explaining why I did what I did. Yeah, because when it ends up in front of the underwriter, they will be questioning you as to how you came up with. And I used to do BPOs for foreclosure. So what we sometimes do such little explanation and all, but it's not as detailed as you guys. So what advice would you give listing agents now if they are trying to pump a house and get it on the market? Because we have to think like an appraisal to make sure the house appraises. And I don't even have to say this because I know you know the market. Just know your market, know your area. I mean, if you guys are doing your job right, you list it appropriately, then it should appraise appropriately, you know? So in this market, it's so tough right now with this market. It's so tough. Because
the sellers are not listening to what we are telling them as per the comps. They are telling us what they want.
Oh, no, of course. I know. So it's a seller's market, you know? I mean, it is. And it's tough because, I mean, like you said, you did you say you did BPOs for Fannie Mae?
Yeah.
I used to work for Fannie Mae doing foreclosures 10 years ago. You know, it's it was a lot of the market, and we don't want to get there again. We don't want that to happen again, you know? So just to see these values, but there's supply and demand. There's just nothing out there right now. And these sellers, I think they know the power that they have. So that's tough. It's tough. And a listing agent, I mean, just know that what we look for, just, you know, do you need to paint this wall because it's, I don't know, paint it, you know, I mean, paint it a beige color, you know, as opposed to a bright color. I don't know. Just, you got to think about the competition you have out there.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of hard for me to answer.
Okay. And what are some of the things we should come with to make your life easy? You know, sometimes we bring the multiple offer spreadsheet, or should we bring the comps that we came up with, and you know, whatever else that will make your life easy. What are some?
I mean, now that everything's available online, my life is much easier. I mean, I started this back when I'd have to go to City Hall, when I'd have to go get the field card. I'd even have to look at the flood map, you know, in a town hall. So everything's much more available online, which is great. But we have to find the deed. We have to, if it's a sale, we have to read through the signed, executed purchase and sale. There's so many more things that we have to do now than we used to. And when you guys show up with your comps, great. I always look at them because you might know that street more than I do, you know, or you might know of a house that, you know, right down the street that I miss, you know, I mean, whatever it is, I like to look and see what you guys provide me. And if you do have a copy of the purchase and sale, I would happily take it, because sometimes that holds things up because the client's waiting for the purchase and sale, and I need to wait to see it before I can submit the report. But I mean, and if I'm given nothing, you know, it's not a big deal. It's what I do.
Does it matter if there are multiple offers? Does that shape your appraisal?
I like to know that information, because if a client, because some of my clients are out of the state, you know, so they don't know the area like I do. So if they see something was listed for X amount of money and then it's selling and appraising for this amount of money, I need to explain to them that price was driven up because of the multiple offers. So if you have that information for me, I will happily take it and I will happily add it to the report, so the client doesn't come back and question the rise from the list to the sell price. You know what I'm saying?
That's good to know. So let's say we had a house that have 10 offers, we'd normally put it on a multiple offer spreadsheet. So it's a good practice to give you one of them.
I mean, I'll take it. Okay. Or even verbally, I would write it down, you know, just because, I mean, that's the market now. I mean, very rarely do you not have multiple offers within hours. So it's just, if that is the case, I like to mention that just to explain.
Okay. Does the current market factor into, let's say a house sold 6 months ago and the current market is higher? Do you even look at the current market at all, or you look at just the solds?
You mean adjusting for time?
Yes.
Like if a sale, I don't even like to look at sales comparables that have occurred over 6 months ago. And if I have to, again, in a place that has little comps, then I would adjust for time. Because I'm always looking at, I break it down in the report, and you can see the values last year as opposed to this year. And so I like to adjust, I have to adjust for time, because if something sold last month as opposed to 6 months ago, that's going to be different. So I adjust for time based on the current market.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. I like to end soon, but I have one question for us to. What do you think of, is it a good idea for these buyers that are making up the appraisal gap?
That's a really hard question for me to answer, because, I mean, obviously a client is not going to provide a loan for a home that is being appraised less than the sale price. It's a really hard, I mean, today's market is just so, like I said, it's just, it's different. Do I think it's a smart idea for a buyer to pay that gap? I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't know what it's going to be in 10 years. You know, I mean, obviously you want to buy a house where there's that equity is going to be there. So I don't know. I mean, luckily I don't think I've run into that problem much, because the market has caught up and the market is what it is. That's a really hard thing for me to answer.
Right. Because lately, it's almost like if you don't have in your offer an addendum about the appraisal gap, you're not getting a house. And it's so hard to be a buyer in this market now.
Yeah. I mean, it is very hard to be a buyer in this market. I agree. I mean,
at the same time, we don't know what next year will be. So it makes sense to grab something whilst the interest rates are low. So that's what people.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the time to sell, not necessarily the time to buy.
But the question is, if you sell, where are you going to go? People have to be creative about where they're going to go, whether you're downsizing or you're up, going up.
Exactly.
It's definitely the best time to sell.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jaclyn. You've been very helpful.
You're welcome.
Taking time out of your busy schedule to come on and answer some of these appraisal questions. We thank you. And So hopefully we'll be in touch.
Yes, who knows?
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We want to thank you all for watching. Our information and Jaclyn's information will be in the recap, in the information part. So thank you for coming. See you next time. We appreciate you all. Bye.